Dear friends, today we learn Unit 3rd. The contents of the Unit 3rd are extrusion, drawing and sheet metal forming. We already learned about some forming process that are rolling processes, forging processes. Now we are learned about the extrusion processes, wire and bar drying process, bending operation and sheet metal working operations. So let us learn about extrusion process. In this figure, this is known as a ram and this part is shown as work, which we have to give the desired shape through the die. This is die and some opening is given to die. So through ram we apply some force. The extrusion process is the work material is forced to flow through a die opening and give the desired required shape of the work piece. In drawing process, in brief, this is work, this is die, some opening is given to go through this work material to obtain the desired shape. There is apply some force to the right side direction. So the diameter of wire or bar is reduced by pulling it through a die opening. This bar drying process is shown in this figure. There is series of die openings given for we reduce the diameter of this work through pulling action through this die opening. So in this figure the extrusion process is shown. Here the die is given, which is in small opening. This is the workpiece known as top. This is the extruded shape. We apply the force by here hydraulic piston, that is known as ram. These are the chambers. So extrusion is a bulk deformation process in which the heated metal is forced to flow through die opening to produce a desired cross-sectional shape. So this is on billets of 125 mm to 175 mm in diameter and 300 to 675 mm in length are generally used as raw material of extrusion. Extrusion of steel needs adequate lubrication around the billet. This is done by providing a coating of finely powdered glass over the surface of hot billet. So we can give the required shape by using the force in extrusion process. Rods, tubes, casing, brass cartridge, aircraft part, gear profiles and hardware atoms are the typical products of metal extrusion. So this is a figure how we can draw the rods, tubes by drawing process or extrusion process. Types of extrusion. There is direct extrusion or also known as forward extrusion. In this process, billet is placed in a chamber and forced through a die opening by a hydraulically driven ram or pressing stem. In indirect extrusion, die moves towards the billet. In hydrostatic extrusion, the billet is smaller in diameter than the chamber, which is filled with the fluid, and the pressure is transmitted to the billet by ram. So the extrusion ratio is the A0 upon AF, where A0 is the cross-sectional area of the billet and AF is the cross-sectional area of the extruded product. In forward or direct extrusion process, figure already explained this process. A round billet is placed in a chamber, also known as container, portion of the die. It is forced through a die opening by a hydraulically driven ram. Depending upon the shape of the die opening, the product of a particular cross section is produced. In this process, the direction in which the material leaves the die is the same as that of punch motion. Hence the name forward extrusion. In the case of hollow forward extrusion, the slug of hollow piece, in this case the punch has the shoulder. The punch acts as a mandrel. The bottom of the cup may be either open or closed. During the forward stroke, metal is forced through the annular opening from a cup. Flange that is produced in this process can be made thinner by having a proper tool design. So this figure is already explained, this direct extrusion or forward extrusion. This is ram, this is workpiece, billet, container, this is the die opening which gives the desired shape of the product. This is the extruded part of the workpiece.